Hello, and welcome to the Academy of the Magical Art. This is Iana Rain, and I am going to talk to you today about indigo, rainbow, and crystal children. And so I know that this is a really vast topic, so I'm just going to kind of cover what my experiences are, what I see, what I know. I have 4 children of my own that are very gifted, and it has definitely been an eye-opening experience. I grew up myself very awake. I was born with all of my gifts. I knew it. I was raised in a family where it definitely was not encouraged. I do have a video about the story of how I grew up and a little background information. And so with that being said, I think that it's important to go ahead and just cover some things that I think are beneficial to know about, how to deal with and why things are the way they are with gifted and magical children. So one of the things that I want to cover right away, and I feel is very important to remember, is that dealing with gifted children, you are dealing with empathic children. So talking about being empathic, I know a lot of adults that are very empathic, and there are days that they can't even handle the energy that they're picking up. So for those of you who don't quite understand or are new to this, what an empath is, I will explain that really quick. And basically what it is it means that your children are sensitive to not only their own emotions, but they're sensitive to the emotions of others, whoever is in their vicinity, or people that they're very connected to. Depending on your child's ascension and how awake they are and their soul's journey, they could also literally be picking up on animals and trees and situations, environment, the globe stuff that's going on, political stuff that's going on. There could be things that are outside of our own environment that are affecting some of these children, because we are being extraordinarily blessed with awake children right now. It is a whole new ball game that we're dealing with when it comes to gifted children, and there's good cause for it. We're in a very critical time right now in this world where things are just a little unbalanced. So that new awakening and a new way of life and new understanding for those of us who haven't experienced it before is what this is all about. It's a new movement forward for better way of living. So speaking about the empathicness of a child, or them being empathic, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to their energy. Say you're going out to lunch or something, and you have your children with you, and everything is going great. All of a sudden, your children or child is acting out and being a little hard to handle, and they're just not in it, flipped. They're just not being what they were a minute ago. Instead of stifling that, you can always remove them from the situation, but I'm asking you to pay attention to what's surrounding them. What's changed? Is somebody new coming in? Is there somebody around you that wasn't a minute ago? Because what's happening is these children are picking up on that energy, and it has to go somewhere. It's their soul's self-defense by getting that energy out and expressing it. They don't know how to filter it, because their souls know how to do it and how to protect themselves, but their bodies do not, because they haven't been taught that tool yet in this lifetime. Your soul holds that somewhere inside, and it needs to be unlocked. So what happens is it has to go somewhere. And so when you're seeing outbursts suddenly, or you're seeing a drastic change in behavior, you really just need to ask yourself to think about it. What's changed? Where can you be where your child is going to feel safe? Now, I'm not saying that all bad behavior, or so-called bad behavior, is coming from spiritual disruptions. Children will be children, and they will need that discernment to come to them. So as a parent, you have to intuitively watch and use a little more patience when it comes to gifted children, because it's a privilege and an honor to be steward over these children, and it's a huge taxing job. It's a blessing that this is happening to you. Going back to the children absorbing all that energy, I just have a quick story about myself. I am very aware of my abilities. I am very in tune with my gifts. I am seasoned, I would say. And I still have, being an empath is still sometimes creating chaos in my personal space. And I'm going through a huge learning spell with that right now, because I am going through a spiritual growth spurt. And I had an incident a couple weeks ago where I literally could not maintain a good balance because I was picking up on something that was shaking me to my core. I did not realize that it was not coming from me until later that day. And I spoke with one of my daughter's significant other, and as soon as I spoke with them, it lifted, and they were in a huge crisis, and everything that I was going through that day, emotionally and even physically, completely lifted as soon as I made contact with that person. I instantly knew, whoa, this wasn't mine. And so if you can imagine somebody being educated and seasoned in how to deal with energetic things is having a hard time, could you imagine the effects on a child? It's very hard to deal with at times, but you guys can totally do this. I have faith in you. I have raised 4 magical children myself. It is a very hard thing, and you have to be forgiving and you have to be loving. I feel like it's important to understand that this is a lot of work. And, when they're having these outbursts and stuff, we have to decipher whether this is spiritually enhanced or if this is our child just testing us. As a parent, you have to be in a really good place. You have to love yourself. You have to be, very kind to yourself. You have to be in a good place yourself, because you need to install in these magical children and these gifted children that whether or not you understand 100% what they're going through, it's still going to be supported. So one of the things that I think is also very important is that when you are dealing with children who are telling you they're seeing something, or they're experiencing something, how many times have we heard kids say, oh, there's a monster in my closet? Well, it may not specifically be a monster, but it may be something that the children are seeing spiritually that doesn't look inviting to them. How many people say, oh, there's no such thing, or whatever? We, as stewards over gifted children, cannot do that, because what that does is it makes them feel insecure, and it questions later in life, they'll question their faith in themselves. It's a mix to set up failure for them. And whether or not we believe it or not, we just have to be understanding to what they're going through, not the situation. Because as Indigo, Crystal, and Rainbow children, these kids will be able to sense whether we are being truthful to them or not. And that leads me into something else. You look at these gifted children, and a lot of times they are certain adults that they just do not want to cooperate with. They don't want to trust. They have no respect for. There's a reason for that. These kids are in tune to that energy. They understand that no, just because somebody's an elder doesn't necessarily mean they deserve their respect. They know that. We were taught that as children. You respect your elders. You hold them at a higher standard. Not all people are on that same level, and these children are completely aware of that. And we know it too. But it's a different kind of value and integrity that they have. And they know what's untrustworthy and what is trustworthy. So we also have to be very, very careful of that in those aspects of things. When you're talking about kids being empathic and absorbing energy, if it's being blocked out or being taken and punished, or They're not allowed to expel this energy. It can literally cause physical ailments because it has to go somewhere. So it can cause like headaches. They can be withdrawn and unattached. There is like random bouts of maybe what looks like anxiety, certain things like that. This can also affect adults who are going through awakening. It can show up in depression, anxiety. They can have social phobia. I believe the correct word is agoraphobia. And the problem isn't that they may not even understand why. It's not that they have something wrong with them. It's that they are picking up on everything that is surrounding them and they don't know how to filter it and process it properly. So it can be pretty uncomfortable if it's not properly channeled. So the question is, how do you properly channel? Well, in children it's hard. You have to be age appropriate. So if you know that your child likes certain things, you can try to encourage like different art projects. And whether it's amazing art or not, it doesn't really matter. Whatever they're feeling or how they see things, or if they are seeing things that we don't necessarily see, have them draw it out, and then you can understand and have them get rid of it. Once they gather it up and push it out of their energetic field, they will feel release. So it's a better way of channeling that energy than having behavior outbursts. Maybe art isn't the thing. Maybe just talking, maybe taking them somewhere, maybe being in nature. Always recommended. If you have a kid that's not really wanting to be in nature, maybe music. Maybe it's something that you do together that has nothing to do with, a lot of kids don't like to focus on the stuff that they see because sometimes it can be scary looking. It is one of the hardest things in the world to be awake and understand when your kid is seeing something and it scares them. How do you explain to a child whose bed is shaking that it's not dangerous? It's just energy that is coming in because it's trying to get their attention because they're an oracle. I had that experience with my daughter. It was horrible to go through. How do you do that? Well, you got to teach them that there's nothing wrong with them and that it's just part of a gift, and you put protection around your home and you just try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. I know that with my daughter, I got her a rabbit, and she had a little dwarf bunny in her room that at night would go into a nice pen, a kennel, and I always let her know that that was like a protection for her, and if the bunny was okay with the energy, then the energy was safe. And if the bunny was acting funny, then she could come and get us and we would make it safe for her. And it's just a way to help that individual child. Now, that's not going to work with every child. It's just a way of communicating with your child to let them know that they're not crazy or they're not bad and they're not in danger. It is a very difficult thing to do. I would recommend meditating yourself and trying to get in a good place so you can help your child. I recommend stepping back and see how they react to people and places and situations, and do what you can to understand if it's being triggered by that outside source. What is it with that? Another example is, how when maybe parents are separated, or your children have certain friends that when they go to their houses and they come back, they act like a totally different child. It's like, what is going on with this kid? And if you look at it, you can see that what's going on is maybe that house is having some chaos. Maybe the parents aren't getting along. Maybe they have older siblings who are in a little kind of emotional trouble, or maybe they're just lower vibrating people, and your child is having to try to absorb all of that energy and put it somewhere. Well, they don't know where it goes. I know that when my son was younger, and not that his father is a bad person by any means, but he is also very in tuned and is not educated on it, so his energy can be a little chaotic. My son would come back and it would take about 3 days for him to hone his energy back down and kind of get into a nice regulated space. And it was really hard to do. A lot of people mistake that for a bad influence on the other person's behalf, and really it is not. It is just that these children are very magical and they're like sponges. So that's an example of how energy can affect them. And when you're dealing with gifted children, it's super important to support, support, support. It's very heartbreaking to me when I see gifted children all over the place and their parents are trying to drug them, or they're such a bad kid, or it's heartbreaking to me as an intuitive and as a gifted person and as an awakened soul to see so much deeper in that child and just wish that there was something more I could do. And this is the best thing that I can do, is just send out some education and help you guys with what I feel is important. If you're dealing with a child that is more awake than you, and this happens a lot, it's okay. You can reach out to a spiritual community, find somebody that resonates with your child, and it's important to just find maybe a healer or a sage or somebody to mentor and help the process along. They will help you, they will help your child, and maybe that's something you can do together. I know that myself, growing up, I wasn't sure the different levels. I knew that I was different. I knew that I had abilities. I knew that there were greater things out there, and how come I saw things that other people didn't see. Growing up with my children and watching them learn, I've had to individually understand their gifts because every single one of them have different abilities. I've got, a daughter that's connected to the angelic realm. I have a daughter that's oracle. I have a son that is dual spirited and very, very old. His soul is so old. And I also have a daughter that can channel just about anything. She's extremely empathic, and she is so incredibly magical, and it's super hard for her to function in public because she picks up on everything. So with that being said, I know that it's not cookie cutter and it's not the same for everybody. And growing up, I've had, some of my kids, I'd take this one to a mandala class with me, or we'd go to a meditation class, or, all of my children have sat in on my intuition class that I've written. I've had, my kids are all Reiki 1 attuned, and it's important to give them some tools that they can expand on. It is a very, very difficult thing raising these gifted children, but it is such a blessing and it can be so rewarding. To me, I think it's important for you guys to know that you're not alone and there's hope and help out there. And I really just want you guys to remember that, these kids are wise beyond their years. And it's just very important for the support. They have to be confident in themselves. They have to be unconditionally loved. They have to be unconditionally nurtured. And as parents, I understand that we get tired, and caregivers, we get frustrated. And it's just so important to give time to yourself and to love yourself. And, how can you teach the child? And how can you teach a child to accept and love themselves if you're having difficulty? When we learn to empower ourselves and value who we are, it will follow through into our children. Think about how, things have changed in just everyday stuff. We are in a very crucial time right now where people are very, very volatile, and the energy that's surrounding us is chaotic, and everybody wants to talk about fighting and abuse and political this and political that. And we can choose to engage in that, or we can choose to start raising our own vibrations and the vibrations of our home. And yes, it's there and we can't ignore it, but how can we as individuals make that difference? One person can make a difference. Our children, our gifted children, these magical children are here to make a better place. and we have a huge role in that. I hope that this has helped you. I know that it was brief. I know that some of the things that I talk about are very vague. It is not cookie cutter, as I said before, and I feel that the biggest thing that we can do is support, love, and encourage. I understand that not all the time this is possible, because there are times where we have to use our discernment and say, hey, is this kid totally testing me, or is this kid spiritually struggling? I know that the energy right now is brutal. I have 2 of my 4 children going through a huge spiritual awakening right now. And as a mother and an intuitive and a gifted person, it is very hard to stay grounded and balanced. But I know that we are protected. We have a great, beautiful job to do. And it's going to be perfectly fine. It may not always be okay. But as long as we're learning and growing, it is a blessing all the same. The greatest gifts are gained by some of the hardest struggles. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're dealing with all of these magical children. And I hope that this touches you and it reaches you and it gives you some kind of encouragement. And I am sending out amazing love and prayers to all of you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I will be doing a couple more videos on this subject, with talking to mothers, children, and adults that have grown up, adults that are awakening now, people that have always been awake, growing up as a gifted child, and mothers parenting gifted children. I really hope that you are all well. Hang on tight to this craziness that's going on. Be good to yourselves. Lots of love and blessings. Namaste and blessed be.